Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers and some interesting guests this week. Angie Hatton, the chair of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, will be talking with us. We began with Lexington Vice Mayor Dan Wu. How will Lexington grow into the future? It's a question that will bring changes as the urban service boundaries are expanded and new planning maps are made. The public is being invited to take part in the process by giving ideas and opinions, and a key meeting is being held this coming week. As Lexington's Preservation and Growth Management Program collects feedback and ideas, Vice Mayor Wu came to that position after being the top vote getter for an at-large council seat back in 2022, and he is joining us right now. And I know this has been something you've been giving some attention throughout your term. Why is it important, Mr. Vice Mayor, that we be very deliberate about how Lexington grows?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, for us as a city, land use policy has been one of our most contentious issues over the past decades. To give a little bit of background, back in 1958, Lexington was the first city in the country to create what is considered either a growth boundary or our urban service area. And initially when they created it, it was really just about where do we put urban services? Where do we put sidewalk, infrastructure, sewers, fire, police, things like that. In the intervening years, it's come to become a contentious issue over our very delicate urban-rural balance, right? We have such a unique character here in the Bluegrass with all of our horse farms and agricultural land ringing, the urban core. So there's always been this tension between preservation of our agricultural character and development and growth and keeping up with our population. LPGMP is an attempt to put a data and needs-driven process in place to guide our growth into the next few decades or centuries even.
Okay, so this would not impact the newly expanded urban service area, which right now there is considerable expansion out along I-75, Winchester Road Corridor, Richmond Road Corridor, and some areas there. That planning is already in place, right?
That's right. The 2,800 acres that council approved for expansion back in 2023, that's in place. It's in the planning stages of kind of figuring out how those developments are going to go. This process is to guide any potential future growth.
And there's always pressure there, isn't there?
Always pressure. In the latest, I think, population numbers that we have for Lexington, we're at 329,000 people. So we're always growing as a city, as population. It's always a question of where are all these folks going to live.
Business interests, no doubt, want more commercial development, both those that are local and those from afar who want to come in. We all know that Lexington does need more housing and more affordable housing. Is this an opportunity to plan the future with those things in mind?
Absolutely. Again, it's all about that balance. And I think in the past, we've been caught up in this sort of binary about grow or don't grow. I'm sure you remember those bumper stickers that said like growth is good or growth destroys bluegrass forever back in the 90s on everybody's
I remember
cars.
A lot of things. The fight over the expansion of Fayette Mall.
That's right.
Some of the mistakes that were made with New Circle Road way back. You talk about the 1950s. You have the limited access areas and then the heavily traveled places where businesses are right on the road.
That's right.
Even Man o' War was
right.
supposed to be, just a few lights.
Yeah.
And now there are dozens,
yeah.
right?
Well, it goes to show you, I think a lot of people, what we love about Lexington and Fayette County is we still have a level of that small town charm. But I think we can have that energy but still really realize that we're a mid-sized city. I think we're the 49th or 50th largest city in America, right? So we're a mid-sized city and we need to kind of plan and grow accordingly. I would love for us to get out of this whole binary of either this or that. Either we preserve the horse farms and the agricultural land or we develop. I don't think it's a simple binary. I think we have to think about every solution in between there.
You have pushed during your term for more walkability and more bikeability in the city. How do you prioritize that with any expansion, especially when you consider that this would be in outlying areas?
That's right. So we're looking at that right now with the Urban Growth Master Plan for this 2,800 acres that we just expanded into. I think anytime where we have new growth and development areas, we have really good opportunities to build from scratch that infrastructure for walkability, for bikeability, for livability, for people to be able to really have all of their resources, their work, their stores, within walking distance. Because not everybody drives, not everybody wants to drive, right? So I think it's better for the environment, it's better for our physical health, and it's better for our just quality of life to be able to have all the things that we need close by.
Why is it important to do this now?
I think the conversation and the I'll call it robust discussion that we had in 2023 really illustrated why we needed a process. In the past, a lot of the decisions behind expansion, whether you go back to 1996 or 2023, and we've had some small changes in between, those have never been based on data and need. They've often been based on just this more amorphous sense of pressure, which is political pressure, economic pressure, the housing pressure. So for me, those decisions, I think, needed a better basis and rationale for those decisions being made. So even though that expansion was done the way it was done in 2023, I think it's never too late to look to the future. And when I say future, I don't mean 5 years from now. I mean 20, 30, 40 years down the road. What do we want Lexington to look like in those upcoming decades?
And so there are meetings coming up people can take part in.
That's right. So last night, well, maybe not last night when this airs, but on September 9th at one of our General Government and Planning Committee, we had the presentation of the latest draft of this proposal, including ordinance language. On the 16th of September, we have a special call public forum at 6 o'clock in council chambers, where the public can come and give their feedback, give their opinions, give their ideas about how they think this process should go.
What would you say to citizens who may feel they do not have all of the information that it takes for them to give a very informed opinion or guidance, although they may want to?
Yeah, this is a very dense subject and it's a very complicated subject, but there are a lot of great resources for folks to keep track of. Engage Lexington is one of our online tools that the council has for all the major items that it's working on. So that's engage.lexingtonky.gov. We currently have a page and item on LPGMP right now where people can get a lot of really great background on this program.
Where does this go from here? You have the meetings, you hear the desires. How do you make that happen over time?
Yeah, so this process is ongoing. It's being built. At that public forum, there'll be a presentation from planning staff going over kind of what the proposal is right now. It is fluid, moving target right now. We're looking and hoping to, in December, on December 2nd, have the final version of this proposal come out, and then hopefully voted out of committee, and then moving on from there.
How important is it to get the timing right so that public facilities are built at a time when they say the development is ready to go, or even housing is ready to go? Yeah,
timing is very, very crucial. One of the things that we're building into this, so let me go back to 2023. The reason that we ended up having the discussion about expansion then was because we were looking at our comprehensive plan. We are required by state statute every 5 years to take a look at our comprehensive plan and the goals and objectives. What happens, though, very often every 5 years is the question of expansion sucks all the oxygen out of the room during a comp plan. So we're trying to plan for our needs assessment and study and that process to be offset from the comp plan so that folks have time to kind of absorb and look at any changes that we've made to our comprehensive plan, and then a couple years later take a look at the needs assessment and go from there.
Ideally, from your vantage point as a leader in the city, what would Lexington look like in 20 years?
I would love for us to really make a dent in our housing crisis, and it is a crisis. We're 23,000 housing units short in Lexington right now, and the majority of those are affordable units. And this is not just an us problem, this is a national problem right now. So I would love for us to have put a dent in that problem, and for more people to live in more walkable, bikeable, public transit accessible parts of town where everybody can get what they need nearby.
Mr. Vice Mayor, how do you think Lexington is doing overall? We do hear concerns about crime, especially with some high-profile situations downtown. Do you feel there is an effective strategy for dealing with that?
Yeah, I think overall our city's in pretty good shape. I think on a lot of metrics, from housing to crime, I don't think we're that much worse off than a lot of comparable cities. But there are always issues that we have to tackle from different vantage points. Homelessness is another issue that we're tackling right now, talking about the idea of a winter shelter for our unhoused population. So they're just ongoing issues that we're always having to tackle.
Is the privately developed Gatton Park doing what you thought it would do in its first weeks on the scene?
I think Gatton Park is beautiful. I think they did a really, really great job with it. It's gorgeous to look at. There's a lot of great facilities for people to play. I really like that band shell for future concerts, and I think it's a real asset to our downtown. And I really like the idea of continually sort of expanding not just the footprint, but the kind of the idea of what downtown encompasses.
What have you enjoyed about your term on council, and in that special role as Vice Mayor that often puts you in the hot seat in terms of helping direct where things are going?
Yeah, if you know council members at all, you'll know that trying to organize us is like herding cats. None of us have bosses except for the electorate, right? We work for all the people of Lexington. So it's been a really interesting and for me really fun challenge. I'm somebody that is very curious and I get bored easily. And this job keeps me on my toes. Like, it's different every single day. And even when you think you know what things you're working on or what things are predictable, things will come out of left field that you suddenly have to deal with. And that's exciting for me.
Do you anticipate seeking re-election next year?
I'll put it this way. I really love what I do, and there's a lot more work to be done.
All right. Sounds like a yes, you're just not ready. But thank you for coming by. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Dan Wu. Now stay with us in just a moment. We will hear from Angie Hatton. She's chair of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, and that impacts your life in many ways. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. The Kentucky Public Service Commission regulates more than 1,100 utilities across the state. It oversees rate hikes or reductions. It approves boundaries and construction projects for utilities. It oversees the accuracy of meters that determine what you're charged. And that's just for starters. The PSC also hears consumer complaints and works to ensure safety. So as you can see, it touches every Kentuckian, whether you know much about the agency or not. Angie Hatton is chair of the Public Service Commission, and she's joining us today. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You do have a lot to oversee at the PSC. I would assume it's rate hikes that get the attention, but you do a whole lot.
We do. We regulate electric, gas, water, sewer, and a little bit of telecom. And so I do sometimes say that we are the most important agency that you've never heard of. We touch almost every household and wallet in the state.
When it does come to those rate hikes, and they come to you, the utilities will give their case. They'll say they need to improve equipment or that their costs are rising. Oftentimes, you have to weigh that against people at home are going to get a bigger bill. Yes. How do you do that?
Absolutely. So in a former life, when I was a state legislator, I went, I think, 6 different times and yelled at the PSC at their public comment hearings about affordability. And that definitely is a major part of our decision, is making sure that those rates are fair, just, and reasonable. But we also have to balance that with the fact that if utilities don't get a reasonable rate of return on their investment, then they won't be able to operate, and then there won't be electricity when you go turn on the switch. And actually, utilities are entitled to a reasonable rate of return, or it's a constitutional taking. So the way our law is set up, they get a monopoly territory, but they agree to be regulated, and then they're required to serve those in their region and to provide reasonable and sufficient service while they're at it. So. As
we start to face winter, we know that heating bills could be high. Does the PSC provide any advice for dealing with what is always a seasonal jump?
Right, absolutely. So a home weatherization energy audit would be a really good idea to weatherize your home, look at any place that you may be having leaks. Sometimes utilities offer those home energy audits. There are low-income assistance programs offered by almost every utility, and even with LIHEAP in danger of some federal cuts, it does still exist, and we always run out of LIHEAP money in some areas of Kentucky. But there's also some apps that are available now that you can get smart meters for your thermostat, and then those apps that you can purchase or use through Alexa or Google Home can actually help you monitor your home energy usage down to individual appliances to see where energy hogs are in your home. And I know several people who are using those and finding them really useful.
If somebody does have a complaint about a utility and they bring their concerns to the Public Service Commission, and they can do that on the website or in various ways, what can they expect to see happen?
Well, so if you call us with a complaint about your utility, our Consumer Services branch will reach out to the utility and attempt to resolve it. Contact them on your behalf, find out if it can be resolved. If it can't, we do a formal case that we open and could have a hearing, and then the PSC would issue an order resolving the complaint. If your complaint is something more general like, my bill's too high, then we would file that complaint as a comment in the case record.
If somebody has a crazy high bill that maybe there was a leak or something like that, is that between them and their utility provider, or is that something that would come to you?
It can come to us. Our Consumer Services branch will investigate that, ask them. Sometimes we ask that meters be tested to make sure they're accurate, whether they need to be replaced. Yeah, it's something we can intervene in and attempt to resolve.
It's an interesting environment out there between the regulators and the companies, and then of course the interests of the consumers. Many assume that regulations have been putting coal out of business. Producers of electricity have retired coal-fired plants and moved on to other options in many cases. You're from coal country.
I am.
Is it the rules, or is it the demand that is bringing such challenges for coal?
Well, you know, cheaper natural gas prices had a whole lot to do with it, but there were regulations that discouraged coal production and use in home heating, and that certainly would have had an effect. In Kentucky, our consumers in general are a little better off than most states as far as stability for our grid, because we have a resource mix that includes 69% coal, I think right now, 26% natural gas. We're still at 5 or 6% hydro, and we have less than 1% in solar and other forms. But it gave us a little bit of runway to have time to think about a transition. The Kentucky legislature has put a number of measures in place to slow down retiring of fossil fuel generation, and it really has, at least in Kentucky, made us less reliant on the gas market than some states or the regional transmission organizations. So without forcing us to sort of go with the way the wind was blowing in federal EPA regulations, and some states retired their fossil fuels a little too quickly.
When we hear about the grid, are you confident Kentucky's supplies are stable, and are we part of a nationwide system?
We are. It's not exactly nationwide, but there are regional transmission organizations, PJM to our east, and MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent Organization. So we are part of the broader grid. Not all of our utilities are members, but Kentucky in general is a little bit better off than some other states that have deregulated. We regulate from beginning to end of the process, and most of our utilities are vertically integrated, which means that they have generation and distribution, and not just purchasing power from the grid and then distributing it like some states. Pennsylvania is having a lot of trouble, a lot of states are, but because we have always at the PSC in Kentucky since its inception in the 1930s, emphasized steel in the ground. We want generation here and want every utility to be able to serve their native load without having to go to the market. So in general, even though it makes a lot of headlines and a lot of people are nervous right now about grid stability, Kentucky in general is a little better off than a lot of states.
Well, it's good to hear. Do you worry about cyber attacks on utilities?
We do worry about those, and we require reporting annually from all of our bigger utilities to come in and tell us how they're dealing with cybersecurity, what sort of training they're getting, what precautions they're taking, especially in water. Because water is a potable, we ingest that, and if someone were to tamper with our water system, it could be really serious really quickly. And so we are constantly monitoring to make sure that there are proper safeguards in place for physical and digital security.
And so we have cities that do it. We have water districts. We have all kinds of systems around the state to provide water. That's a lot to watch, right?
That's right. And of course, that's not even to mention, danger to some sort of attack on our electric grid.
Which could impact
of course,
the water. Is nuclear energy likely a part of Kentucky's future energy mix? I know the legislature has directed a robust study of that.
They have. The Public Service Commission, through Senate Joint Resolution 140, Senator Carroll sponsored, has been instructed to get ready to regulate nuclear. The Office of Energy Policy for Kentucky has done some modeling that shows that we are expected to need up to, I think, 3 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2050. It will take 15 to 20 years before we're going to see anything built, but all of our utilities are looking at that possibility. It's very expensive to build, but it is reliable, it's sustainable, basically a green energy source. And then areas like Paducah that have had involvement with nuclear since 1952, when they first opened their gaseous diffusion plant there, have welcomed the industry with the laser enrichment of spent fuel cells and things like that. The PSC is going to have a listening tour. We're going to go across the state and stop in 5 different cities to allow some public comment. We have toured a plant in North Carolina. Last week we toured the Watts Bar plant in Tennessee, and TVA announced 6 projects within their footprint just I think last week for potential SMR, which is the small reactors.
Which
it's a
they
new
have
technology.
a small presence in southern Kentucky.
They do,
right? Yeah.
so they could be considering a site in Kentucky.
Yeah, what people want to hear is that it's safe.
Right. And so that is a huge part of everything that the PSC is looking at, not just safety in operation, but in storage of waste afterward.
Solar energy rules seem to be evolving on that, and
Yes, sir.
some of that has been turned over to the local governments, right? Because it does impact local cities and counties where those solar farms might be located.
It does, and it has been a hot button issue in some communities. Some are just fine with it, when they site a solar facility on a former coal mine, for instance. The locals aren't upset because it's never going to be noisier or dustier or more traffic than a coal mine was. But when some of these sites are to be located on farm, rich soil, beautiful farm area, then we tend to see a lot more protest from the local people at our siting board public comment hearings, and I know there was one in Fayette County that was very controversial. So the legislature a couple of years ago turned over primacy to the local counties, and every county has the opportunity to file an ordinance that fits their county, whether it's a 1,000-foot setback or whether it's we can only put solar in industrial areas, not agricultural. Or a couple of counties have done outright moratoriums. I think the last time I counted, at least 32 counties have local ordinances. And if you have a local ordinance in place, the siting board that I chair, we can't go around that. We have to abide by local rules.
But the local boards can approve individual projects.
The projects get approved by the Siting Board, the Kentucky Board on Generation Siting, which I'm chair of, as chair of the PSC. But we have to abide by local rules for setbacks and zoning and things like that.
The PSC has concerns about people digging up or damaging underground utilities. The 811 calls, that is more than just a suggestion, right?
Correct. It's the law. Absolutely. We are the administrator in the state of Kentucky for the federal laws about how you're supposed to call before you dig, even if it's just in your backyard, even if you're not a contractor. And we have put a really much larger emphasis recently on trying to avoid the almost 1,000 breakthroughs into lines per year. We even sponsored a scholarship at the Kentucky Community College System for those who may be going into heavy equipment operation careers.
Yep. Because it is expensive and a major disruption if it happens.
It is, and very dangerous. I mean, if you hit a gas line, the loss of life is a possibility.
Yeah. Angie Hatton, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank
Chair
you.
of the PSC. Just kind of wanted to learn more about the agency.
My pleasure. Anytime, Bill.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Everybody, we'll wrap up Kentucky Newsmakers in a moment. We want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. Invite you to stay with WKYT News for the latest on all that's happening on WKYT.com, our WKYT News app, and of course on air. And we hope you make it a good week ahead.